Do you think an animated movie about K-pop idols hunting demons can teach you anything beyond entertainment? A few cool kicks, some catchy music, and maybe a glowing-eyed demon that looks like it belongs on a car commercial? Well, think again. Because K-Pop Demon Hunters is not just a movie. It's a loving slap in the face for anyone who's ever felt lost within themselves. Like me, like you, like so many others out there. Beneath its cute animation and upbeat rhythm are some surprisingly deep lessons about growth, facing fears, forgiveness, and living with purpose. In this video, you're not just going to get a film review. You're about to discover 8 of the most powerful things this movie can teach you about personal transformation. Small things, maybe, but if you pay close attention, they can change the entire direction of your life. And I need you to remember one thing very clearly. Lesson number 7 is the most important one. Not because I like the number 7, not because it's near the end of the video, but because it holds the emotional turning point of the entire film. And it also reveals the biggest reason why most people never truly change, no matter how hard they try. Have you ever started working out, only to quit halfway? Set a goal, then felt defeated after just 3 days? Try to change a bad habit, only to fall right back into it? Then lesson number 7 is exactly the answer you've been searching for. And trust me, once you truly understand it, you won't be the same person anymore. Now imagine this. You're watching Demon Hunters, and suddenly you think, wait a minute, that's me? How do they know exactly what I'm feeling? That's when the film hits you. And that's when you realize true personal change doesn't start with reading self-help books or listening to motivational podcasts. It starts from the inside. And Demon Hunters will show you what that looks like. So are you ready? Let's walk through these 8 lessons together and become a stronger, braver, more authentic version of ourselves. Lesson 1. Face your fear, the first step to real change. Think back to the very first episode of Kpop Demon Hunters. These girls, K-pop idols, trained to perform, not to fight, suddenly have to face real monsters. Huge, terrifying, nightmare-inducing demons. No warning, no preparation. What did we see in that moment? Fear, pure human fear. But here's what makes it powerful. They didn't run. They were shaking, panicked, but still stood their ground. They stared the monster in the face, even while afraid. And that's our first lesson, the one most people avoid when talking about change. To grow, you must be willing to face your fear. Now, fear doesn't always come with horns and glowing red eyes. Sometimes it looks like the fear of failing, the fear of being judged, the fear of not being good enough, or simply the fear of starting over. And here's the paradox. The more you avoid your fear, the more it controls you. Just like the Demon Hunters, once they accepted fear as part of the journey, not the enemy, that's when they truly began to grow. Not because they stopped being afraid, but because they learned to act even while afraid. You don't need to conquer fear to begin changing your life. You just need to be a little braver than your fear, just a little. And that's enough to move forward. And sometimes that tiny act of courage is exactly what starts your transformation. So think about this. What small thing can you do tomorrow to face your fear directly? Apologize to someone? Say no to something that doesn't feel right? Admit out loud, I'm starting over? Start there, because lesson 1 is always the hardest. But it's also the key that unlocks every other door on your journey of personal change. Lesson 2. You can't change alone. Real growth requires allies. If you think personal transformation is a solo journey, something you have to conquer all by yourself, then you're making it harder than it needs to be. Honestly, even Iron Man needed a team. G-Dragon? He's got a crew. No one grows in isolation. In K-Pop Demon Hunters, after their first fight, which was a total disaster because they couldn't work together, the girls had a huge realization. If they didn't learn to trust one another, they were going to lose. Every single time. That's when everything changed. They began training as a team. They stopped trying to outshine each other. They learned to lean on each other's strengths and cover for each other's weaknesses. Most importantly, they learned to trust. And that's the lesson. You can't become your best self alone. Change doesn't happen in a vacuum. Sometimes you need someone to pull you up when you fall, someone to remind you why you started, someone to hold you accountable. Let's be real. When you work out alone, it's easy to skip a day. But if you've got a friend waiting for you, you show up. When you set a goal but keep it to yourself, it's easy to quit. But if someone checks in and says, "Hey, how's that going?" suddenly you push through. That's the power of having allies. Not people to carry you, but people who walk beside you, who challenge you, who reflect back to you what you're capable of when you forget. Demon Hunters only became strong once they stopped pretending they had it all together. And you know what? That's strength. Real strength isn't saying, "I've got this all the time." Real strength is saying, "I need help." And knowing that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. So here's something to ask yourself. Who's on your team? A friend who calls you out when you slack off? A mentor who pushes you beyond your comfort zone? A community that shares your values and goals? You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need people who remind you that you don't have to do this alone. Because once you allow others to support you, to challenge you, to grow with you, you don't just change faster, you go further. Lesson 3. Clarity of purpose. The power of knowing why you're changing. There's a subtle but powerful moment in Kpop Demon Hunters that's easy to miss if you're too focused on the action scenes or the pulsing K-pop soundtrack. Even while fighting literal demons, the girls never give up their love for music. Sounds ridiculous, right? They're exhausted, bruised, running for their lives, but they still rehearse, still write lyrics, still sing. Why? Because they never forget why they started. They're not fighting to become heroes. They're fighting to protect music, to protect dreams, to protect a world where creativity and self-expression still matter. That's what sets them apart. They have a clear purpose. Now, let's bring that back to real life. When most people try to change themselves, they think in terms of surface goals. I need more discipline. I have to stop being lazy. I should work harder. But here's the problem. If you don't know why you're doing those things, your motivation will disappear the moment it gets tough. Sure, you can force yourself to wake up at 5 a.m. for a week. But if you're not crystal clear on what's waiting for you at 5 a.m., a dream, a mission, a life you believe in, you'll be hitting snooze again by next Monday. There's a scene in Demon Hunters where one girl is badly injured. She's physically done. It looks like she can't go on. But then she hears a song she once wrote, and something shifts. Her eyes light up. She gets back on her feet, because that song reminded her of her why, her reason for fighting, her reason for enduring pain, her reason for becoming more than who she was. So here's the question for you. Why are you trying to change? Because you hate your current self? Or because you're building a better version of you, with purpose and intention? A clear purpose doesn't just keep you going, it keeps you grounded when everything else is chaos. And you can start defining that today. Write it down. Don't worry about making it sound perfect or inspirational. Just be honest. I want to change because once you can finish that sentence with full clarity, you're no longer just trying harder. You're walking with direction. And direction gives meaning to every small step. The Demon Hunters grew stronger not just because they trained harder, but because they knew what they were fighting for. When you know what you're fighting for, every decision matters. Lesson 4. Learn to fail, because no one changes without falling first. Let's be honest. Have you ever started something with good intentions? A new habit, a workout routine, a mindset shift, only to give up halfway, then feel guilty about it? If you have, congratulations. You're human, and you're also on the right path. In Kpop Demon Hunters, there's a turning point that really hits home. After a few early victories, the group starts to feel overconfident. They think they've got this figured out. They start to ignore small mistakes, take shortcuts, and underestimate their enemies. Then, boom, they lose. Badly. One member is seriously injured. The team is shaken. Their spirit? Crushed. But here's the key moment. They don't quit. They don't pretend it didn't happen. They sit with the pain. They cry. They blame themselves. Then they start again. From zero. That's the real power. Not avoiding failure, but getting back up with wisdom. So, why do most people struggle to truly change? Because they believe failure means they're not good enough, that they're not cut out for this, that maybe others were meant to succeed, not them. But the truth is, failure isn't the end. It's feedback. You don't learn balance until you fall off the bike. You don't learn discipline until you lose control a few times. You don't learn commitment until you almost walk away. Every stumble is a lesson in disguise, but only if you're willing to look it in the eye. So what should you do when you fail? Acknowledge it. Don't hide or blame others. Own it. Ask, what did I learn? Not what did I lose? Start again, not blindly, but smarter than before. That's what the Demon Hunters did. And that's what you can do too. They didn't become stronger by pretending everything was fine. They became stronger by learning from every loss. And they never let failure define them. Neither should you. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to grow. And growth always involves falling first. So next time you slip up, remember this. Your failure is not your identity. It's your instruction manual. Lesson 5. Embrace your differences. You don't need to be like anyone else to be powerful. One of the most powerful parts of K-pop Demon Hunters isn't the epic fight scenes or glowing demons. It's the fact that each girl is completely different. One's quiet and reserved. Another is loud, impulsive, and hot-tempered. One is deeply emotional, full of self-doubt. And another is goofy, full of energy and a little clueless. At first, their differences cause friction. They argue. They clash. They miscommunicate during battles. Each of them silently wishes the others would just be more like me. But when danger truly strikes, when their lives are on the line, they realize something profound. Their differences aren't the problem. Their differences are the strength. The quiet one notices the subtle patterns that others miss. The impulsive one takes bold risks no one else dares. The emotional one senses danger before it happens. And the carefree one keeps everyone from falling into despair. Together, they're unstoppable, not because they're the same, but because they're different. And that's your lesson too. You don't need to change yourself into a copy of someone else to be worthy or successful. You don't need to wake up at 5 a.m. because that's what a productivity guru does. You don't need to read 100 books a year because someone said it's the key to success. Trying to live someone else's blueprint is a fast track to burnout and self-loathing. Instead, try this. What are your natural strengths? What do you do differently from others? And how can that be your advantage? What part of yourself have you been hiding or criticizing just because it doesn't look like what success is supposed to be? Here's the truth. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be honest. You need to be yourself fully and unapologetically. Just like the Demon Hunters, you'll only find your real power when you stop comparing and start embracing. Because no one was ever meant to walk your path, but you. So if you've been trying to change by becoming someone else, maybe it's time to change by becoming more of who you already are. Lesson 6. Know when to pause. Slowing down doesn't mean you're falling behind. There's a quiet episode in Kpop Demon Hunters that stands out, not because of flashy action or emotional explosions, but because of its stillness. After an intense battle, the group is in training. They're not fighting. They're not even talking much. They're just resting. One girl lies on the floor, eyes open, lost in thought. Another stares at the ceiling, headphones on. Another writes in her journal, while someone else simply breathes. It's calm. It's subtle. But it's one of the most important moments in the series. Because in that silence, they start to hear themselves again. One realizes she's been fighting out of fear, not purpose. Another admits she doesn't know who she is outside the group. Someone remembers the real reason she joined this fight in the first place. And one of them finally whispers, "I'm tired." This moment reminds us of something we often forget. Growth is not just about pushing forward. It's about knowing when to pause. We live in a world that glorifies speed. Faster, harder, more productive. If you stop, people say you're falling behind. If you slow down, you feel guilty. But let's get this straight. If you never pause, you will crash. You can hustle all you want. But if you're not checking your direction, you might be racing toward a life you don't even want. So here's the truth. Stopping isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's the space where you ask, am I okay? Where you check, is this still the right path? Where you breathe, recalibrate, and reconnect with your why. The Demon Hunters didn't grow just because they fought. They grew because they reflected. They stopped. They felt. And from that stillness, they came back stronger. So if you've been grinding nonstop, chasing goals, and feeling more lost than ever, maybe what you need isn't more effort. Maybe what you need is a pause. Not to quit, but to listen, to rest, to regroup, and to return with clarity. Because knowing when to stop, that's not stepping back. That's preparing for your next leap. Lesson 7. Forgive yourself. The real turning point of transformation. This is it. The moment that hits the hardest. Not just in Kpop Demon Hunters, but in any journey of real, lasting change. In the later part of the series, one of the girls, the quiet, composed one who always seemed in control, finally breaks. Not because she's physically hurt, not because they lost a battle, but because a secret from her past is revealed. She once made a terrible mistake, one that caused real harm. And even though she's been fighting hard ever since, trying to make up for it, deep down, she's never forgiven herself. She says, voice shaking, I've tried to change. I've done everything right, but I still feel like I don't deserve to. That line, that's the one that stops you cold. Because so many of us have felt exactly that way. You try, you grow, but inside there's still that voice. You failed before. You hurt someone. You gave up. You quit. You don't deserve a second chance. So you punish yourself. You overwork. You strive endlessly to prove you've changed. But no matter how much you do, it never feels enough. Why? Because you haven't done the one thing that makes true transformation possible. You haven't forgiven yourself. Let's get one thing straight. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending your mistakes didn't happen. It doesn't mean saying it's okay. It means saying, yes, I made a mistake, but I am not that mistake anymore. You acknowledge, you take responsibility, but you also allow yourself the freedom to move forward. In the show, when the team finds out her secret, they don't reject her, but more importantly, she stops rejecting herself. And that's when she truly unlocks her power. Because no matter how hard you train, how many goals you set, how perfect you try to become, if you're still carrying the weight of shame, you'll never feel free. But the moment you say, I was broken, but I'm healing. I was wrong, but I'm growing. I was lost, but now I'm learning. That's the moment change becomes permanent. That's the moment you step out of your old identity and into your future self. So ask yourself, what mistake are you still holding over your own head? What guilt is still driving your every decision? What part of your past are you refusing to let go? Maybe today's the day you let yourself breathe again. Maybe today's the day you stop proving and start forgiving. Because only when you forgive yourself can you finally become someone new. Lesson 8. Fight for something bigger than yourself. That's when true change lasts. By now, the girls in Kpop Demon Hunters have grown. They've faced fear. They've failed and gotten back up. They've forgiven themselves. But there's one final shift, and it changes everything. In the final arc of the story, they stop fighting just to survive. They stop fighting just for revenge or redemption. They begin fighting for something bigger. For the young fans who look up to them. For the people who can't defend themselves. For the world they want to protect. A world where music, dreams, and freedom still exist. And that changes their energy completely. They're no longer just reacting to challenges. They're not just trying to fix themselves. They're fighting with purpose. And here's why this matters to you. When you try to change your life only for yourself, it works for a while. But the motivation runs dry. You burn out. You start asking, what's the point? But when you tie your change to a purpose beyond yourself, a person, a cause, a mission, suddenly you have infinite fuel. Let's be real. A mother doesn't quit smoking just for her health. She quits because she wants to be around for her child. A teacher doesn't keep improving just for a paycheck. They do it because students are watching. A creator doesn't show up every day just for likes. They do it because their words are helping someone they may never meet. So ask yourself, who will benefit from your transformation? A younger sibling watching how you handle life? A future family you haven't met yet? A version of you 5 years from now who's counting on you not to give up? You are more powerful when your why includes more than just you. In Demon Hunters, the girls became legends not because they fought the hardest, but because they stood for something greater than themselves. And when you do that, something shifts. Change is no longer optional. It becomes your mission. You stop saying I should, and you start saying I must. Because now you're not just changing your life. You're changing the world around you, even if only a little. And sometimes just a little is enough. So now you've seen it. Kpop Demon Hunters isn't just an action-packed, demon-slaying, pop song blasting roller coaster. It's a mirror, a call to grow, a reminder that the fight to change isn't always flashy, but it's always worth it. We walked through 8 powerful lessons. 1. Face your fear, because hiding only makes it grow. 2. Don't do it alone, because real change needs real allies. 3. Find your purpose, because trying harder means nothing without direction. 4. Learn to fail, because falling is part of the climb. 5. Embrace your differences, because your power is in your uniqueness. 6. Know when to pause, because stillness gives you strength. 7. Forgive yourself, because shame can't fuel transformation. 8. Fight for something bigger, because that's when your growth becomes unstoppable. And maybe you saw yourself in these lessons. Maybe you've been scared to start. Maybe you failed and thought that was the end. Maybe you've been chasing change for years, but never stopped to ask why. Whatever your story is, remember this. You're not behind. You're becoming. You don't need to transform overnight. You just need to take one honest, courageous step at a time. And if Demon Hunters taught us anything, it's this. You're not defined by your past. You're defined by your next move. So the next time you hear that inner voice saying, you can't change, you failed too many times, you're not strong enough, just smile and whisper back, watch me,